What a pleasure this is in just interacting with all the people who are sitting on stage with me over the past couple of days. And what an eye-opener it has been. Very humbling and very motivating. Sitting with us on the stage, and this is the first time that I can say that such a large and eminent gathering has been put together. And for the first time, a televised conversation is happening on inclusivity in sports and education at this level. So my compliments to the organizing team, to Anuradha ji, Ambika ji, Dr. Datta, Abha ji, for putting this together and for educating people like me and a lot of people watching this telecast on what can be done, how well it can be done, and how energetically it can be done, as we have witnessed here in modern school for the past couple of years. And of course, as Satyapal ji just mentioned, across the country in the past couple of decades. I know all the guests have been introduced, but let me take a small opportunity at introducing them as we speak with them. And the list is so long and illustrious that I'm going to have to refer to notes. To my extreme left, Ankur Dhama ji. He's a long-distance runner and Arjuna awardee, somebody to be really proud of in this country. Ladies and gentlemen, we also have Commodore P.K. Garg. And I promise you, I spoke with Commodore P.K. Garg just a couple of days ago. You can't imagine the impact just one person has had in so much work that is happening in this country. Commodore Garg, thank you so much for being with us at this podium. He's, of course, CEO of the Target Olympic Podium Scheme, the TOP scheme. Dr. Anuradha Solanki is with us. She's working with the Sports Authority of India as a sports psychologist. Anuradha ji, thank you for joining us. Mr. Tim Newenham, who is not only been a sports person, but he has led the Olympic pushes for countries. He's currently the director of the Singapore Disability Sports Council. He's flown down yesterday from Singapore for this. Good to have you, sir. Ms. Himika Chaudhary, she's a general manager at the I&D Ministry, is joining us. Ma'am, thank you so much. And it was great speaking to you yesterday. And I know she has a lot of good stories to tell us because we were discussing these yesterday. Colonel Ashok Moore. Now, Colonel Moore is going to tell you the story himself, but he is probably single-handedly had the most amount of impact in inclusivity in education in this country. It's a privilege to be sitting on the same stage as you, sir. What a treat this is. Professor K.K. Deepak, Colonel Moore, of course, is currently Principal Motilal Nehru School of Sports, one of the best boarding schools in the country, by the way. Professor K.K. Deepak, the former Dean of AIIMS in Delhi, he was the head of the Physiology Department. He's currently a visiting professor. He's focusing on Biomedical Engineering at IIT Delhi. Brigadier B.K. Nayak, he is, of course, Director of the Sports Authority of India. He's in charge for the National Center for Sports Science and Research. Cutting edge of sports. He's the right person to be talking, especially in this context. And of course, finally, last but not least, Ms. Kavita Suresh. She's the General Secretary of the Cerebral Policy Sports Federation of India. It is thanks to speaking to her 2 days ago that I now know that there is a Cerebral Policy Sports Association of India and the work they do. And I'm hoping a lot of people are about to find out through the course. Let me start off with the sports person. And if I can potentially ask you, Ankur ji, अगर मैं आपके साथ शुरू कर पाऊं, अपनी लाइफ जर्नी, लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस रनर की जर्नी, प्लीज हमारे साथ शेयर करिए.
गुड मॉर्निंग टू ऑल. देखिए, जैसा कि आप सब समझ चुके हैं कि मैं विजुअली इम्पेयर्ड 100% ब्लाइंड एथलीट हूँ. लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस रनिंग और वो भी एक ऐसा कठिन काम है जिसको आप समझिए हमें डेली रूटीन में ट्रेनिंग करना होता है. माइलेज काफ़ी रहता है. हम कहीं तो वीकली अराउंड 150 किलोमीटर्स. और स्पेशल हमारे साथ क्या है कि मैं एक गाइड रनर को इस्तेमाल करता हूँ हमेशा. यानी कि हम 2 लोग मिलकर एक कंपटीशन खेलते हैं और 2 लोग मिलकर एक ट्रेनिंग करते हैं. तो ऐसे में जो हमारे गाइड हैं उनको भी काफ़ी समझना पड़ता है कि क्या चैलेंजेस हैं, और साथ साथ में कोच को भी ये समझना पड़ता है कि इनका किस तरह से सिंक्रोनाइजेशन हो सकता है, किस तरह एथलीट का कॉम्बिनेशन एक दूसरे एबल एथलीट के साथ मिलाया जाए। तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा चुनौती भरा रहता है। लेकिन देखिए, किसी भी कार्य को मैं ऐसे स्वीकार करता हूँ, वो चुनौती जो लगती है मैं उसको आनंद के साथ लेता हूँ, क्योंकि जब हम किसी भी संघर्ष को करेंगे तो उसमें हमें बड़ी खूबसूरती के साथ आनंद आना चाहिए। तो मैं उसको बहुत ज़्यादा ध्यान रखता हूँ। लेकिन जहाँ तक बात रही लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस रनिंग की, लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस रनिंग एक अपने आप में तिल तिल करके मारने वाली चीज़ है, पर लेकिन वही हमारा इंड्योरेंस बढ़ाती भी है और हमें आगे बढ़ने के लिए प्रेरणा देती है।
तो अर्जुन जी शुरुआत कहाँ हुई? आपको कोई दिन याद है? आपकी उम्र क्या थी जब आपने सोचा कि लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस रनिंग मैंने करनी है, अब शुरू करनी है?
सर, मेरी उम्र, मैंने पहले जब स्कूल में 5 से 6 साल का था तब मेरी आंखों की रोशनी चली गई थी। तब मैं एक स्कूल में पढ़ने के लिए आया, यहाँ पे दिल्ली में ही है जेपीएम सीनियर सेकेंडरी स्कूल फॉर द ब्लाइंड, ओबराय होटल के पास में। वहाँ से पढ़ना शुरू किया। उसके बाद धीरे धीरे वहीं पे मेरे जो फ्रेंड्स थे वो खेलते थे। उस समय कभी ये नहीं सोचा था कि लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस रनर बनना है। पहले एज यूजुअल बच्चों की तरह क्रिकेट खेलना, रनिंग करना। फिर 2007-8 में मेरी मुलाकात नेहरू स्टेडियम में डॉक्टर सत्यपाल सर से हुई। उस समय मैं 400 मीटर 800 मीटर किया करता था, लेकिन सर ने मेरी बॉडी को पहचाना और एबिलिटी को पहचानते हुए मुझे थोड़ा धीरे धीरे मोल्ड किया 800 से 1500 मीटर की तरफ। और फिर जैसे जैसे एज बढ़ती गई तो इंड्योरेंस भी बढ़ता रहा, तो सर ने फिर 1500 और 5000 मीटर की तरफ शिफ्ट किया। लेकिन मतलब ये एक बड़ा चैलेंजिंग था सर के लिए भी, क्योंकि मेरे साथ बहुत सारे पार्टनर की आवश्यकता होती थी, क्योंकि 5000 मीटर है तो काफ़ी ट्रेनिंग पड़ती है। तो सर 2 से 3 एथलीट्स को मेरे साथ अरेंज करते थे, मैं उनके साथ ट्रेनिंग करता था। और जब की स्थितियाँ 2007 और 8 से लेकर, उस समय इतनी ज़्यादा लोगों को जानकारी भी नहीं थी, अवेयरनेस नहीं थी कि एक ब्लाइंड एथलीट दौड़ सकते हैं, उनके लिए गाइड पार्टनर होते हैं, ये सब चीज़ें फैसिलिटीज़ कम थी। लेकिन आज का समय काफ़ी बदलाव आ चुका है, प्रॉपर्ली गाइड हैं और फैसिलिटीज़ भी काफ़ी बढ़ चुकी हैं, जो और भी इसमें सुधार होना बाकी है, लेकिन काफ़ी बढ़ चुकी हैं, जिससे एक ब्लाइंड एथलीट अपने आप को आगे बढ़ा सकता है और स्पोर्ट्स को एज ए करियर अभी तो चुन ही नहीं सकता, उसमें जबरदस्त एक्सेल करके लोगों के लिए एक प्रेरणा का स्रोत भी बन सकता है।
It changes everything. Dr. Datta was just mentioning how proud it is, for him to see a Badoni scoring in the IPL. Just imagine Dr. Satyapal is been sitting with us when somebody you coached and mentored wins an Arjuna award. Okay, what an exciting feeling! And you heard from the coach, you heard from the protege, who's of course an Arjuna awardee, Ankurji. Inspirational story. Let me get in, if I can, Brigadier Nayak. Let's pick it up from there, sir. When it comes to understanding the sports person's abilities and the work they're doing, you've had an illustrious career in the Army Medical Corps. Can you help us understand, sir, sports traumatology, sports physiology? What is the kind of exercise? What's the role that this National Center for Sports Science and Research is performing? And if we can get a mic, mic is with you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. To start with, I'll continue where Ankur left. I had the privilege of treating Ankur on his way to the Tokyo Paralympics. That time I was heading the sports medicine department of Safdarjung Hospital.
Sir.
To start with, he had frequent injuries because he was at the peak of his training, and Dr. Satpal also used to refer him. So now, the way I've been asked to set up the National Center for Sports Sciences, now we have started documenting everything. So in future, runners like Ankur, if they have got issues, we have got precedences. We know what all things that is going to help these kind of runners so that they do not land up with frequent injuries. Because again, end of the day, our Indian athletes and para-athletes are unique. We cannot blindly copy whatever the Western concepts are there. So I have the mandate to come up with a very indigenous, robust sports science support delivery mechanism where we can make sure that our athletes and para-athletes realize their complete genetic
So give us an
potential.
example, sir. Is it then documenting a training regime? Is it nutrition? What all are you covering when you say you're documenting it?
See, any high performance has got four basic things. First thing is physiology. They have to understand how does the body responds to different kind of training stimuli. The second comes the recovery. How well the athlete recovers or para-athlete recovers so that he or she is ready for next days of training. Third is the nutritional intervention. Our diet is completely different. We cannot just blindly copy whatever is being adopted abroad. We need to understand how our body is going to respond to our local available nutrition and supplements. And finally, the psychological support, without which, again, we cannot sustain in a high-performance ecosystem. So we are working on a framework where we understand what all things are going to work for our Indian athletes and para-athletes. Once we are having enough data, then we'll come up with the guidelines and these recommendations, suggestions, and of course,
Okay, so
there will be
now, especially for para athletes, are we talking in single digits, dozens of case studies that you worked on? Is it now reaching hundreds? What kind of scale are we working at? So when
we are just hardly 2 years into our establishment. We are still in the process of being established. But if you want to ask for the data, yes, currently we have at least more than 100 of data related to elite para-athletes.
It's becoming institutionalized. So this is the National Center for Sports Science and Research. I'm hoping a lot of people are going to Google this and figure this out, both and approach it, both for academic research opportunities and of course as sports persons to come and get some help. So that obviously the next person I need to get into this is Professor K.K. Deepak. Professor Deepak, in fact, ma'am, if you can get a mic across to him, please. Yeah. Thank you. Professor Deepak, now, biomedical engineering. So what's the cutting edge, sir? Because every day we are discussing that robotics is changing, artificial intelligence is coming in. A large part of biomedical engineering is high-tech. A lot of it is very low-tech. What's the cutting edge right now, sir?
So the cutting edge, I come from IIT Delhi. Earlier I worked at AIIMS. I had worked with a lot with this SAI. The cutting edge currently as a sensing technology. Can you sense what is happening in an athlete? And that may happen at the sensory level, touch, a level of muscle function, nerve function, a brain function. Now I'm reading this beautiful statement, Nayat Matmam Balihinen Labhya, which means self-realization cannot be achieved by the weak-willed. When I read it, since then I'm reading, I'm trying to understand, can I measure my will? Can I measure my performance readiness? For example, athletes when gets up in the morning, goes to the performance, the first statement comes, am I fit to perform today for the peak performance? So what is coming into this? Can I know what is my biological rhythm? Can I know, am I good to perform? Like the mood changes. And in fact, if you think of athletes, it is the killing spirit which actually wins. They know how to win. And that's what the killing spirit we've been talking about. So the current cutting edge start from the sensing technology. Like at IIT, colleagues are developing 128 sensors on the foot sole. So when you are standing, then you know the angles. And by knowing the autonomic tone, like you measure the heart rate, you know how much your sympathetic drive. You have both a relaxing drive and a sympathetic drive.
Yes.
It should not be much, go beyond control, otherwise you overperform and fail.
Okay, so literally what you seem to be saying is that, sometimes athletes say that we are in form. Okay, and sometimes you're not in form and you're having a bad day and it's the same person with a great track record. So that will soon become measurable.
Yes. Exactly. Like if you do a sleep rhythm, a whole night cycle, if you have a good rest, good sleep, you know I'm good at it. The moment you have a 1 hour break in the sleep, in the morning your mood is not good and you know it. So there should be a measurable device by which cognitive performance, by knowing the sympathetic performance in the morning, if my heart rate is high, I would indicate, no, there is some problem. Okay, let me go into 20 minutes relaxation.
Okay, so Brigadier Nayak was telling us that for the first time, an institutionalized means a record-keeping academic exercise is happening, which will be built over decades, working with para-athletes. When it comes to research happening, so cutting-edge research happening to assist both through robotics and AI and other facilities for para-athletes specifically, are we seeing that start in places like IIT, in places like AIMS?
Thank you for this question. About 3 months ago, we had a great symposium at IIT Delhi. People directed from AIMS and from Niti Aayog. People came there, and then we talked about 4 verticals. One of the verticals was how technology can enhance performance enhancement in para-athletes and Paralympians. And then we have come up with one vertical at AIMS Jhajjar campus, and then we are trying to do it how medical physiology, I belong to physiology, how technology can enhance and this kind of a thing. And there we are bringing not only sensing technology, but also AI. Because AI has an enormous potential. What Dr. Bibu Naik said, you have the data, but what to do with the data, how to make sense out of the large amount of the data. So suppose one athlete is running for 1 full day, you get tons of the data, the kind of movement, the kind of everything. But how to make to use of the data, the AI will come. For example, virtual reality. They can be given training in the virtual reality. And therefore, this is one of the important things.
Okay, so what we need is an athlete to have an inclination for sports, which is going to happen in school grounds like this. Then you need the Dr. Satyapal coming in and saying, okay, beta, this is the kind of sport you should go for. Forget 400 meter, think 5,000 meter. Then you need Brigadier Nayak's team to come in and study and then provide the latest learnings that they have, depending on the need. Then you have the good doctor to bring in the biomedical sciences to study it. So the ecosystem approach is so important. And speaking of ecosystem, let me then put that question to the good Commodore joining us on the broadcast. Now, Commodore, you yourself are a multiple-time national champion. You spent 3 decades in the Navy. Now you are a sports administrator of this TOPS, top scheme, podium scheme. Can you help us? Can you tell us first about the scheme, sir?
Thank you very much. At the outset, I would like to congratulate Modern School for a most wonderful thing which you have started, Sportability. I mean, it's mind-blowing actually what you are doing for para-athletes and what this can really bring about. Congratulations to the
I think that deserves a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Modern School.
Let me add to that, so you walked around the school to enter. ये जो सारी facilities हैं, basketball court, tennis court, football field, ये सारी after school hours and on the weekends are open to para athletes, and this has been happening for 2 years. Now, of course, the booklet which is on your tables is for other schools to replicate. Commodore.
Coming to top scheme, after the success of India in London Olympics, it was, and after this new government, Modi ji's government took over, it was discussed as to what we can do more for sports persons directly. There are government schemes already, like Assistance to National Sports Federation, which provides funding to all sports directly. But it was still, there was a gap where if an athlete wanted something, for himself or herself, how can that be provided? So that gave birth to the Target Olympic Podium Scheme, which was started in 2014, but actually took off sometime just before the Rio Olympics and really took off 2018 onwards, where a full, a secretariat with people working for athletes was established in Sports Authority of India.
Can you help us understand, sir? I mean, literally, ladies and gentlemen, there was a time that you became a sports person after you had achieved. Then the people recognized you. This is about providing livelihood, means, support before they become famous, before medal winners. Can you understand the institutional financial support, sir?
Yeah. So what happens that once we see that there is a medal winning potential in an athlete at younger level, we bring them into the top scheme at the development stage. There are two stages in the top scheme. One is the development group and one is the core group. So the development group, generally we bring an athlete who can perform at subsequent Olympics, not the immediate Olympics, but subsequent Olympics. And the core group which has the potential of winning a medal or at least effective participation in the coming Olympics. So we give them complete support, starting with 25,000 rupees out-of-pocket allowance to the development group athletes and 50,000 rupees a month to all the core group athletes. This is just for their requirements which are not being met by any other scheme or any other thing. Whatever an athlete requires for subsistence, we give them this.
Okay, so I'm just going to underline that fact, okay? Because for the better part of my lifetime, it was considered that cricket, okay? And you make it or break it. I want you to think about the exact developmental impacts of somebody receiving 25,000 rupees a month plus other grants in aid when you are probably in your preteen years. It's a game changer. That person is not only financially independent, and it completely changes. This has been the biggest impact on sports in the country. We'll see the dividends in the next 5 or 10 years. And there's another aspect of this, and let me ask you, Commodore, on this. Ladies and gentlemen, in the past 10 years, we've seen this. Haryana is a great example. Women athletes are now bringing prestige to the family. They are famous. They make the family famous in the village. They are earning members of the family. It has completely changed the attitude toward women. Sex ratios are improving because of these things, because it brings pride, which is what Dr. Satyapal was talking about. कि the खुशी जो आती है, जब pride जो आता है, now you apply that to para athletes, Commodore, right? That when we are talking about that there is a family that is facing a lot of mental challenges with the acceptance and the reality of it, and that transforms into pride when you go and win a medal and the Prime Minister wants to come and meet you or call you up on the phone. How impactful can that be, sir? And how is TOPS really addressing para athletes as well?
Currently, we have 57 para athletes in the core group, and they are being provided each and every help, whatever they need. Many of them are currently practicing in US. Sharat is in US, I believe, and there are 2 more athletes who are in US. Apart from that, all kinds of equipment which they need is being provided to them. There is no distinction whether you are able-bodied.
Yeah, make the point. All the facilities are exactly the same.
Absolutely no distinction. Whether you are a para-athlete or you are an able-bodied athlete, the facilities and the support is very same. So, as far as the ratio of male to female, there is no distinction at all. Just to give an example to the audience, in the Asian Games this time, the medals won by our female were almost 51%.
Yes. And of course, the first Olympic medal in an individual category was, of course, Karna Maleshwari. And so you are seeing the impact of gender empowerment and the impact it has on families, how everything changes. And the same logic is what we're trying to have a conversation on, people with diverse abilities, that where it almost seems traumatic, not only for the individual, for the entire family, but it changes completely because this person is then bringing glory to the family and to the village. On that thought, let me get Mr. Tim Nguyen into this conversation. Now, there is a saying in sports: those who know. So let me but do an introduction. Mr. Nguyen, of course, has led the entire international sports efforts of countries. He's of course from England. He has led the teams in Malaysia, currently in Singapore. First, let us understand, Mr. Newanim, this Singapore Council that you're working on disability in sports. What does it do and what's your job profile now?
Certainly. Singapore Disability Sports Council is the national sports association for all parasports in the country. Social agency as well, so it starts with a board of social change and it's developed into now pathway and performance. So my post now is responsible for selecting the athletes that could represent the country well, then putting in place all the support services that you've heard about earlier, sports science, including psychology, nutrition, strength and conditioning, and the coaching. So we employ the coaches as well to provide the athletes with potential to make sure they have a pathway through. And one of the areas that we've really focused on when I first came into post was to put a 10-year plan in place. And a 10-year plan is probably needed because a year is a little short. 4-year, an Olympic and Paralympic cycle is just one cycle, and we want to really grow. There's research to suggest that it takes 10 years, 10,000 hours, to develop excellence, whether it's in music, whether it's in art, whether it's in sport. We want to try and fast track that, and I think we heard evidence earlier, in 6 years it's possible, and I've experienced that, to take someone with the potential right up through to Paralympic level. So putting in the services so there's a regular daily training environment with all the services is an essential part of making sure that people with disabilities have an equal access to all the facilities and services, and the coaches are upgraded, if you like, to understand the specifics of the disability.
How is engagement with educational institutions? Some which might have inclusive opportunities. How is that important? And what is the example that you're seeing in Singapore right now? Where is the young talent coming from?
So Singapore is a very small country. There's 5.7 million people in the entire country, and around about 3% have disabilities.
That's a South Delhi, 7.4 million. Yeah.
So in some ways, people say that could be a disadvantage for sport because there's low numbers. But we take it as an advantage because we can do very individualized programs. And I think that's also a key when we find someone with great potential, maybe an outlier, someone in the top 10%, they do need individual attention and individual programs built around them. And what I see here is what I see sometimes around the world. I've been fortunate to travel, as many of you have, and I see little pockets of excellence around the world. In the south of Oman, in Salalah, a little pocket of excellence with some excellent coaching in an environment that's not really so conducive at the time to parasport. And there's the coach producing Oman's first ever Paralympic bronze medalist in this case for athletics. Then in Malaysia too, there's little pockets of excellence in diving. Then we have going on to the parasports centres of excellence in Malaysia for athletics in particular, and the II groups, the intellectual impairment groups. Singapore has exceptional little pocket of excellence around swimming, para-swimming. Mm-hmm. So what I see here is a real pocket of excellence of world-class standard of moving something forward that is a real example to how you can integrate people's aspirations, whether they're able-bodied or not, in a very holistic approach.
Yes.
To enable everyone's potential.
Okay, I'm going to come back and ask you about what then that international gold standard is. So what is the gold standard that is can be provided through inclusive education and of course to para athletes? Let me get Colonel Moore into this. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Moore has literally fought in Kargil. NCC, as you know it in the schools, including in modern school, the very fact and the nature it is done in the educational program, you can credit him with. He set up more than 40 inclusive schools in this country through the armed forces mechanism. Colonel Moore, I think, yeah. I was trying to read his biodata yesterday. It's longer than all of the notes I've currently taken. So Colonel Moore, you are currently principal of your alma mater, if I'm correct. It's one of the best boarding schools in India. What is your story, sir? Because you are, amidst all of this, a father to a son with special needs.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's a wonderful day today for addressing you all, and it's a privilege for me to be invited to such a gathering. I have a habit of speaking too much, but still, I'll try to restrict myself. First of all, I would like to congratulate Dr. Datta for this wonderful initiative under the guidance of Ambika Pant ma'am, and with the help of Mr. Ashok Kumar and Mr. Sachdeva. I happened to be here 2 years back when they started their first program. I got inspired that mine is around 250-acre school. And I thought I should also start, but I could not. But let me assure you this time, we are going to open our facilities to all the students or children or people with special needs.
Here. Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I'm convinced with this track record that is going to be a rapidly enforced commitment, sir. Very happy to hear that.
It's all because of Dr. Datta that, I got inspired. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I happened to study in MNSS Rai. After 12 years of education from 1st to 12th in boarding, I joined NDA. 28 years in the Indian Army. When I was just a young officer, I happened to, in one of the operations on the border, we landed up in a blast and I lost my leg in 1994. But so, I thought, okay, today also I hold the 100-meter record in my school after 36 years. I thought, let me go into sports again, and para sports and all. I had a little bit of knowledge. But due to some, commitments or the other, I could not. But I ensured that after 71 war, the Indian Army had stopped importing foreign legs. So in 1996, I took the initiative and I restarted the importing of foreign legs for the Indian soldiers. And today, whatever the Indian soldiers, the foreign legs, that are being given, it is due to that initiative. And one of my friends, Major Anil God, was instrumental in helping me in this initiative. As I started off slowly, then I thought, okay, when I look at the para athletes, I also happen to contribute to Dr. Satyapal's vision and his achievements. I have one of my Jawan, now Subedar Virender. He's happened to be an Asian medalist in shot put and discus. He happened to be my soldier when I was in Jalandhar. I happened to see him. I asked him, what happened to you? He said, sir, I lost my leg below, above knee. I have amputation. I said, what can you do? He said, I can take part in sports. I said, how can I help you? So he said, I want to go for a training to Rohtak. I said, please go. Without taking any sanction from anywhere, I sent him. And by the grace of God, as you talk about, the government of Haryana has given him so much of money. He has, ample amount of facility to himself, which he's sharing with other people also. That is the most important part. And that was one. Second, over and over, whenever I get an opportunity to help the para-athletes, I did not go myself, but I make it point that whenever I get an opportunity, I help them. Second is the social inclusion. The social inclusion of special need children. We have taken up a case with I happen to keep giving suggestions to the government. And the next one, like the last one was to start there are 40 special schools in Defense Forces. So I propose that we should have inclusive schools rather than special schools. And the project has been agreed and they are, amalgamating both the schools, the special schools and normal schools. This initiative will also go a long way in the inclusive sports, whether special needs kids or they are going to be taking part in the Special Olympics. That defense is going to contribute a lot on this factor. So just to, as sir was saying, about the NCC, God has been kind. I love whatever I do. And when I went to NCC in 2016, I thought, why don't we make NCC as an elective subject in the country? And that's how it started. And today, the majority of the CBSE schools are making NCC as an elective subject. The CBSE started, the UPSC approved, and the various governments I approached, and state governments are approving NCC as an elective subject.
Okay.
So that's been a little bit of contribution.
I want you to just please, it's as a request to dip into the personal journey in this. You've spoken about yours, but within the family, okay, to have an opportunity in front of you to not only understand, empathize, but bring about change. So some of us have the privilege that we know we can impact the world around us. But how was the journey with family, sir, bringing up a son with special needs?
It was initially we could not understand. But then, I thought when we were blessed with a baby, and slowly we started getting used to it. I said there were a lot of challenges. The doctor said that child is not going to even walk. Forget about getting up. So, but me and my wife also happened to be here, though my son is also here. So we tried our best. Let me tell you, my son was in the pool when he was 6 months old. In spite of the fact he had a lot of problems.
What's his name? Is he here?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Abhinav.
Abhinav, hi to you from the stage. Let's give him a round of applause.
Abhinav, beta.
There he is at the back.
Yeah. Abhinav happens to be a star player of IPSC, wherein he scored 4 3-pointers.
4 3-pointers, and I'm assuming his basketball. Abhinav, good to have you, sir.
Hi, baby.
So basketball, is it?
Yeah.
Basketball?
Yeah, absolutely.
I am filing my national. I am going into national last year.
National basketball player as of last year. What a fabulous story. Abhinav, thank you for joining us. Thank you.
I have got 3 sons.
Yes.
One is in the Indian Army as a lieutenant. He's the youngest, but he's the lucky one who played nationals out of all 3 of them.
Well done. We are proud of you, Abhinav.
We had some problems in life in last 2 years, but still, I can assure you, in next 2 years, he's going to be there in the Special Olympics for sure.
Okay. What a happy thought. Okay. All right. Let me, if I can just get in Himika ji into this conversation. Himika ji, so now let's put the perspective in place from all the various conversations you've just heard. So there has to be an overall vision. Now, it was just about 4-5 months ago, November last year, when we saw all the I think para-athletes from the Asian Games come back, and they all met the Prime Minister at the Dhyan Chand Stadium. Okay, I think a couple of years ago, during COVID, there was an interaction for the Tokyo ceremony, but that was a virtual interaction. So from a national picture point of view, in engagement as at an equity level, what is the vision planning that you're seeing happening?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's such an honor to be here, and honestly, sitting amidst so many stalwarts, I feel very small. But, like you said and you asked, narratives are very important while all the hard work happens at the ground level, and it happens constantly. But to be able to communicate that to the larger masses, to create perception, is equally important. But before I delve into that, I'd like to congratulate the entire board of Modern School Barakhamba, Principal Sir, for this great initiative, because, we say that sports is an equalizer. And when we say that, what we mean is that it brings together people from all backgrounds. It cuts across socioeconomic barriers. It cuts across geographic barriers. But as Modern School has proven, that it can also cut through barriers of, being differently abled and specially abled, and sports can bring everybody together. So many congratulations, sir, for doing this. Now coming back to what you were just talking about, perceptions. So you see, when you brought out that point of Honorable PM meeting the Paralympian, Satyapal sir in his speech spoke about his interaction as well. you know what has changed, I think, and all of us need to come together to change this more, is that we've been able to change in the last few years how we look at people with special needs, or people with special, who are specially able, so to say. The nomenclatures are changing, Instead of calling them Viklang, we call them Divyang. In modern day India, in the new Bharat, I think we have been able to include them, and that inclusion journey has possibly just begun. We are a few years into it, but initiatives like this one and many, many more that are happening across the country is very truly, but steadily ensuring that in the minds of the people in general, our specially abled brothers, sisters, youngsters, are making a place where there's no need for sympathy.
So how exciting is it? Because when you're a student and you get an opportunity to meet your principal and you remember it for the rest of your life. When you are young and in your teens and the Prime Minister of the country calls you to a stadium and honors you, it is. So when I was talking about prestige, in your family, in your friends, in your relatives, in your village, in your town, everybody's going to know that photograph is going to be on the wall for the rest of your life. So how much of a game changer are these kind of things?
Like I said, that, it's changing across the country, this perception about how we perceive especially able people. And I think it's started beautifully from the top, like you just mentioned, that, and there's a little anecdote I like to share here about Sharad, who's an alumnus of this school.
Yes, Sharad of modern school, yes.
Yeah, and he said that, and this is a story he narrated to all of us after he came back from the Tokyo Paralympics. And if I recall correctly, he also narrated this, when he went to PM House after coming back with his medal, the Olympic before, he was very, very nervous, so he missed his medal by a very, very small mark. And when he was at the Paralympics in 2020, Honorable PM called him a day before to ask him if he was doing okay and, if he was feeling confident. And after he won the medal, Honorable PM called him again. So in the process of receiving the call, he was late to the podium to receive his medal, and he had won the bronze and the other two winners were already there. So when he reached, the gold medalist said, "You're late." So Sharad said, "Yes, I had a call from my Prime Minister." And this gentleman, totally flabbergasted, was like, "Your PM called you?" And he was like, "Yes, my PM called me." And this gold medalist was from the US, and he said that this never happens in our country, And how is it that it happens? It is, an instance which goes to show that the prestige that our specially abled athletes have in the eyes of not just the dispensation,
so, ma'am, exactly
but the
that.
entire...
I don't know if Dr. Datta has heard this story before also, that he got late to the podium because the Prime Minister called him and had to make an apology for it. But this is the vicious circle to virtuous circle. That when everything starts changing across the board, the science comes in, the coaching comes in, the facilities comes in, the funding comes in, then you start winning medals, so the prestige comes in, you inspire the next generation, and you suddenly hit a new orbit in a very short span of time. Let me get Dr. Solanki on that thought, because, ma'am, distinguished psychologists like you have literally devoted your life to these matters. Can you help us understand sports psychology, particularly? When we are talking about sports psychology, have you or do you know colleagues who are working specially with para-athletes?
Good afternoon to all of you. I really feel privileged to be among such a stellar, people who are working in the field of sports. My contribution in the field of psychology, especially sports psychology, is about 30 years. My exposure directly to differently abled athletes has been not so much, but I know of many people, my colleagues who are working with differently abled athletes, and of course it's a challenge because sports always is associated with a physical prowess. जैसे ही हम स्पोर्ट्स की बात करते हैं तो you have to excel physically, but in a differently abled athletes, along with the physical challenges that they face, there is also a lot of mental challenges that they have to, it is not like a able-bodied athletes participating, जैसे Dr. Satyapal बोल रहे थे, that athlete who had to, get into a metro, travel so much, come to Nehru Stadium,
But how do we gauge it, man? Because oftentimes when we're dealing with young people, for many people, just simply waking up in the morning and showing up to school on time is becomes a challenge. And you see a completely different level of determination, the greater the struggle that seems to be in life. How does that happen?
It's totally because of the willpower that they have and a belief, a self-belief, which is very important that I can do it. Which is actually the mental edge of a differently abled athlete. I don't think the normal athletes definitely have this level of resilience, this level of confidence that they can do. That is very important, and that is what is giving the results. Like short term mein itne achhe karna, and
Yes.
it is not.
No, because I was discussing this with Himika ji yesterday that you don't want special treatment. You want that I'm happy taking the metro myself and I'll figure it out. It might take me 10 minutes more, but I'll figure it out. You just want the facilities that are open to everybody else simply to be opened up here and other things. So there comes an immense amount of strength, and how do you then tap the strength psychologically, ma'am?
First of all, making them understand that you're not different. Inclusiveness हम अभी बात कर रहे हैं. Inclusiveness actually gives them the strength from within. The moment you see a differently abled individual, I'm not talking about athletes, in the general population also, when you see a differently abled person and a normal individual, just to make them feel that they're one among us, that itself, gives them, inner strength that I'm not different. I can do the things as well as a person who is bestowed with the best of the abilities can do it.
Yes, so a large part of the challenge for us as a community is just a lack of knowledge and understanding, and that applies to me. I've learned so much in the past just 2 hours from very literally 5-minute conversations and reading about the work that is going on. And one such person is, of course, Kavita ji. If you can get a mic across to Kavita ji. Thank you so much, ma'am. Kavita ji, now, so let's take a deep dive. Let's do some education, especially for people in the audience and people watching this on television. Cerebral palsy, ma'am. Can you help us understand cerebral palsy? What is the kind of population size that we're dealing with in India?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me first congratulate Modern School for Sportability. With Sportability, there are two big achievements for the school. One is by having an inclusive system, you're giving an opportunity for persons with disabilities. The other side is that the other children learn to deal with persons with disabilities from a very early age. They understand that their challenges are no more challenges when they see persons with disabilities. So they get an opportunity to be better human beings in the society. So I think Sportability is a wonderful initiative, and congratulations to Modern School for the same. Cerebral palsy.
Yeah, I think that deserves a round of applause. I mean, it's okay to be proud of something that you're doing.
Cerebral palsy is a physical disability which happens during pregnancy, during the birthing of a child, and just after the baby is born. So it is basically an injury to the brain which causes a disability which is lifelong. And I'm given to understand by the doctors I meet that there are at least 1.3 to 1.4 crore people with cerebral palsy in the country. That's 1% of the population of India. And the disability is going to stay with mankind because this is not caused by a virus, this is not caused by a bacteria, there's no vaccination to it. It is going to exist as long as mankind exists. And with the recent discussions and, I had with an orthopedic surgeon, he was giving me a perspective where this number is only going to raise just because of, we are very proud of modern technology, science in medicine. But then he helps me understand that babies born at 800 grams, 900 grams are going to survive now due to technology, due to modern science, but they are going to end up with cerebral palsy. So he's saying this 1.3 to 1.4 crore number is just going to become 2 crore very soon.
Okay, so Kavita ji, from an understanding, which many of us here have heard about this, have heard about these numbers for the first time. How did you go from this base level of understanding that we are acquiring today to suddenly thinking, hang on, there needs to be a cerebral palsy sports federation and I'm going to become general secretary? How does that happen?
Before I get to my journey into CPSFI, why sports for cerebral palsy?
Yeah.
The persons with cerebral palsy have a problem with their balance, movement, their muscle tone. So they have to visit a physiotherapist or get a physiotherapist visit them at least twice a week, thrice a week, depending on the condition. Because the spectrum of cerebral palsy, there's somebody very severe on a wheelchair to somebody who is mobile with probably a monoplegic kind of condition. So if they have to visit a physiotherapist, that means they have to have that physical activity for themselves, or else the muscle tone can worsen. It can make it more difficult for them to be mobile. I'll quickly tell you about the story of an athlete who was born quadriplegic. But then when she was doing her master's, she ended up not focusing on her physical activities and ended up on a wheelchair. That's when this girl meets a doctor and the doctor says, unless you take up a physical activity, you're going to be on a wheelchair all your life. This girl was actually walking before she got onto the wheelchair, and that was doing her master's. She takes up a sport. Today she runs 100 meters for the country and she's off wheelchair. So what we get to understand from this is that these persons require to be physically active, and taking up a sport, what we at CPSFI say is, going to a physiotherapist can be monotonous, can be depressing, because you're going into a clinic and you're seeing people with similar disabilities sitting there waiting for their nobody enjoys clinic visits. So what we say is, take up a sport. The person enjoys taking up sport. You meet people who have achieved in this area, so you are motivated, and then you are going through a physical transformation. You're becoming a healthier person. You're becoming a psychologically better person too. You're a happier person. And in some cases, there are financial benefits, and people are, becoming stars today in, inspiring others. So these can be more than reasons required to take up sports for persons with cerebral palsy. So when meaning my journey into CPSFI happened because my nephew is a person with cerebral palsy. And I used to go with him to his sports meets, and I bumped on Mr. Rajesh Tomar, who is the president of CPSFI, and he has been part of the sports ecosystem for a while, especially para-sports ecosystem, and he said, let's do this for persons with CP. If there's such a strong reason that they have to take up sport,
okay, so what is the organization then doing? Are you organizing tournaments? Are there leagues? What is the setup like?
Cerebral Policy Sports Federation of India is an NSF recognized by the Ministry of Sports.
Okay.
So the Ministry of Sports identifies CP as a disability which requires to be attended to, and that these people require a forum, require opportunities so they can excel too.
Okay, but why don't we get Professor Deepak, since he's sitting here on this. Professor Deepak, help us understand. You can use my mic. So help us understand the physicality of this.
Okay. So the physicality of cerebral palsy. Yeah. So the problem is that because of the birthing defect, they have a loss of muscle tone. And because of muscle tone, they cannot have their performance. So for that, the physiotherapy or some kind of a support is required. And when they get a support added, they almost become equivalent. So the technology brings them social equivalence, because otherwise they feel so they can compete among themselves. So with the help of increasing muscle tone and their performance, also their cognitive performance are lost. So they are given cognitive tasks, and technology comes in a big way to help and boost their performance.
Okay, so the answer, of course, is more physical exercise, not less. The more you do, the better you become. Now, when you talk about cognitive tasks, how do we go about in terms of addressing that?
Yeah. So cognitive tasks are certain tasks which are given, and they have to compete with those tasks given on a screen, and then they have to get a score. And once they do it, it enhances the neuronal capability which control the brain function, and also there's a transfer of learning. When I do physical exercise, my brain becomes smarter for memory and storage. So cognitively, I become smarter. So those physical exercise also enhances your memory. Therefore, the cognitive tasks are very important, which given physical tasks both together makes the person to perform more. When he wins first game, that is the boost of performance. He says, I'm confident, and tomorrow I'm going to have better score. And that's what the winning.
Okay, so it's about setting winning ways. And speaking about setting winning ways, let me get Ankur back into this conversation. Ankur ji, इतनी विषयों पे चर्चा चल रही है, लेकिन जो सबसे महत्वपूर्ण विषय शायद है कि अभी हम सिस्टम, बिकॉज हम सबसे ज्यादा आलोचना सिस्टम की करते हैं कि सिस्टम ही टूटा हुआ है, सिस्टम बदल रहा है. ये टॉप स्कीम की चर्चा चली है, सर बैठे हमारे साथ, फिट इंडिया स्कीम की चर्चा चली है. क्या ये अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं? क्या आपको लग रहा है कि हाँ, अब एथलीट्स को जो सुविधाएं चाहिए मिल रही हैं?
ये बात सर बिल्कुल सही है, क्योंकि ये सिर्फ मेरे बताने से नहीं होगा. जो ये नंबर हम बढ़ता हुआ अपना ग्राफ देख रहे हैं मेडल्स में, ये डायरेक्टली शो करता है कि यहाँ पर बहुत अच्छी प्रगति हुई है, प्रोग्रेस काफ़ी है. और हम उम्मीद करेंगे.
Yeah, that's a lot of applause right there.
सर हम उम्मीद करते हैं कि जो हमारी गवर्नमेंट की फैसिलिटीज़ हैं, प्लस जो मॉडल स्कूल का ये एक मॉडल है अपने आप में, ये बहुत दूर तक इसकी छाप जाएगी और तमाम लोग इससे प्रेरित होकर इस मॉडल को अपनाएंगे. और डिसेबल एथलीट ही नहीं, एबल एथलीट्स को भी ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा और भी ज़्यादा सुविधाएं देकर हम अपने स्पोर्ट्स को, अपने स्पोर्ट्स इकोसिस्टम को और मजबूत करेंगे. साथ ही साथ मैं ये भी रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा कि और फैसिलिटीज़ बढ़ाई जाएं. हमें ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा अब काम करना होगा अपने इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर भी, जो कि डे बाय डे मेंटेनेंस है, जो वो और बेहतर होगा. तो मैं उम्मीद करता हूं.
थोड़े उदाहरण दीजिए कि सबसे महत्वपूर्ण इंटरवेंशन क्या है? क्या वो फाइनेंशियल एड है? क्या स्कूलिंग में इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है? सबसे ज्यादा इंटरवेंशन क्या है? अगर आप पैरा एथलीट्स की बात करें.
सर सबसे पहले तो महत्वपूर्ण तो यही है कि जो स्कूल्स हैं वो तो सबसे ज़्यादा ज़रूरी हैं, उनमें उनका समावेशीकरण हो, इंक्लूजन हो, और साथ ही साथ उन्हें वहाँ पर ये सभी लोगों को तक ये अवेयरनेस फैले, पहुँचे कि जो एक एबल एथलीट हैं उसी के समानांतर स्पेशल नीड के जो एथलीट्स हैं वो भी होते हैं. उनकी सुविधाएं अलग तरीके से की जा सकती हैं, पर वो सब कुछ कर सकते हैं. ये एक चीज़ को समझना पड़ेगा. दूसरा सर फैसिलिटीज़ और फाइनेंशियल असिस्टेंस, ये सर सभी के लिए महत्वपूर्ण है, लेकिन मैं इससे भी ज़्यादा महत्वपूर्ण समझता हूँ एक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का होना. जिस तरह अभी हमारे यहाँ पर मॉडल स्कूल के पास ये सभी चीज़ें उपलब्ध हैं और वो भी सुचारू रूप से चल भी रही हैं, तो इसी तरह का हमें चाहिए कि हम अपने डे बाय डे मेंटेनेंस को हर सेंटर में बढ़ाएं, जिससे हमें विदेशों तक की पहुंच ना बनानी पड़े, जबकि विदेश हम अपने यहाँ ही पर क्रिएट करें, विदेश हमारे यहाँ के मॉडल को अप्रिशिएट करें.
Yeah, oh, absolutely right. You know, जो Ankur के for young people themselves and for families, just to figure out where to go and what to do can be a challenge. I can tell you that it's not just Sportability. Modern Education, which is MIE, which is hosting this conference, is setting up an institute right behind where we are sitting, where children with special needs, sometimes in cases that even inclusive schools are struggling with, they are addressing them, providing them the facilities. I think, Ambika ji, that's a huge initiative, far beyond what you're currently doing as well. Credit to you. Let me get Dr. Nayak back into this conversation. Dr. Nayak, we've been talking about institutionalizing and creating a virtuous circle where, you know, where it is not silos and segmented and everybody passes the buck to the other person. When it comes to the role of sports sciences in this, where do you see the next few years? What's the future?
If we have athletes like Ankur and very learned coaches like Professor Satyapal, you know the way forward. There is so much of expectations by them from us that it becomes very challenging. And they have got a very, very fine scientific bent of mind. They want to use technology. They want to use sports sciences to achieve better performance. And to be more precise, high performance at the highest possible sporting arena of the world. So that makes our job completely cut out. So for that, we have to have collaboration, and the platforms like this, it's basically to learn from each other, share the ideas, and decide on the mutual goal. That is, we aspire to become a sporting superpower in coming years.
You know, sir, I'm just going to draw, your attention as well, and to people watching this telecast or reading this. So this is a pamphlet. Many of you might just pick it up and put it back down, thinking it's some kind of publicity material. No, it's got nothing to do with publicity. So the difference between just us talking and science is writing it down. Okay, so 2 years of Sportability, which is opening access of public school with a lot of good sporting facilities to people with special needs. What is the lesson learned is tabulated here. What was the lesson that the teams learned? What were the issues in infrastructure? What was the FAQs that need to be figured out? You write it down, and this might be 20, 30 pages right now, but you build that knowledge base. So for this modern and excellence and Sportability, how do then educational institutes work with people like you in terms of partnership in creating these guidelines, case studies, examples, repositories for people to really have an institutional knowledge on how to do this?
For that, we have collaborated with IIT Delhi. Professor Deepak sir is there. So what we intend to do is that we intend to come up with a customized prosthetics for each and every of our para-athletes, so that they are completely assured of their safe health. And second is the peak performance. The second, we have changed all our standard operative procedures with regard to the different kind of sports, because each athlete has got a different kind of challenge.
Yes.
And the sports specific challenge. So those SOPs had to be changed, which we have already undertaken. The third and most important part is that we had to sensitize all our staff the challenges of our para-athletes or the athletes with diverse abilities, so that they can be helped. And once we do the testing, what Professor Deepak brought out, it is not about the data. How first we can go back to the drawing board and come back with a solution or a recommendation.
Yes, so it's not about the world as you see it, it's the world that you want to make it. So let me then ask you, Professor, when it comes to physical biomechanical intervention, which is sir talked about prosthetics, where are we seeing development going on there, sir?
So the government of India has already put in several effort for prosthesis, and in fact my actual research started, I shall tell you a story, about 1996. We were trying to see how my prosthesis can be moved. So my hand is not there. The process is how. So we're trying to harness the EEG signal or the signal from the eye or from EMG, which has been already done, how to move it. So therefore, the technology comes in the way that how processes can be used best fit and best activity. So that is the way the technology is coming in a big way in order to help. So technology can also come in a big way, the way I take point, to create a database and using AI and for that matter. But one more thing I would like to add here, now it opens up a new avenue for innovation and entrepreneurship in prosthetic and mechanical devices development. And now the country is already on the verge of entrepreneurship. There's a lot of government of India support is coming up. So we have a large number of this section of population which requires this kind of devices to be made. They have to be customized, and that's what is the biggest problem with Dr. Satpal. And then they would realize that for each person, it has to have a little different device. Technology can come in to adapt it. And also when they come up with the problems like sensing, it's not fitting well, and then how to go into, again, the technology comes. So India can emerge as a leader in this field.
Okay, so just like in any field, when you have, primary health, secondary health, tertiary health, right? So for a parent or a guardian or a family member, where do you go? Is the medical system lined up to guide you in the direction of the advanced technology? So that basically what I'm trying to ask is for people who might not know what is available these days.
Very nice question. Again, at AIIMS, where I come from, there's a Department of Physical Medicine. It's called Department of Physical Medicine. You're not talking about rehabilitation. And this physical medicine has all like a gait analysis or quantification of physical disability. It is important we have to quantify what percent of physical disability like PWD, and then we have to come into the technology. So the new medical colleges, they have now rehabilitation, orthopedic rehabilitation where the patient come, but also like a sport sciences with the government of India, we've been trying with Dr. Vivanayak know that center of excellence for the sports, and now Paralympics and parathletes, they have come into a big way. So at AIIMS also we have this department which can take care of all those problems which these parathletes faces.
Okay, so other than Google it, which is always probably not the best thing to do always, the logic, which is probably for a bit of a takeaway, that a consultative mechanism that provides you access to the best in technology is important. Let me get the good Commodore back into this conversation. Commodore, when we are talking about, and let's talk about TOPS, for example, right? One sets up a scheme thinking of the needs, and it needs to have a practical application for it to be successful. In theory is a separate conversation. How are you doing impact assessment? That is this intervention actually working? Is it simply that you watch the medals going up, so it's fine? Or do you actually study and take feedback from the athletes?
You see, we have a very inclusive mechanism. We have in the TOPS in Delhi and in on field also, we have athlete relationship managers who are in direct, almost on a daily contact with the athletes. So if an athlete...
So can you explain that? Athlete relationship
manager, yes. Each of our TOPS athletes have an athlete relationship manager who is in direct conversation with the athletes regarding their needs. So suppose if an athlete needs a psychologist, they have found that they need a psychological intervention and they need a psychologist. So the athlete comes up that I need so and so. The athlete relationship manager then helps the athlete in making a proper proposal to the TOPS, and the service is provided immediately. Within 1 week to 10 days of the athlete requesting for something, and that is provided.
So it's very personalized.
The top scheme is totally a personalized, requirements of athletes at that level. For example, Satvik and Chirag. Satvik and Chirag were looking out for a coach a specialist coach for themselves, because they had reached a level where they now wanted to, break into the top 4 in the world. So they found a coach, and the coach is supported completely from tops. And
I see.
there is more than that, how you are saying that there is a group, there is a WhatsApp group of this pair, the coach, the CEO top, joint CEO tops, and the athlete relationship manager, which converses on a daily basis.
Right.
And now the coach has recommended something that I need this. So that is provided immediately.
Okay.
That is what is making the difference.
So can you give us maybe an anecdotal example just from your administrative experience doing this on a day-to-day basis of when you get the feedback, right? That I require this intervention, and maybe the adaptation and evolution you're doing to the scheme as well. How is it evolved from its inception to where it is today?
See, one thing in the scheme is that we are also doing a lot of performance monitoring. So performance monitoring of athletes, we are seeing whether whatever we are doing for the athlete, is it helping build the performance or is it not helping build it? So towards that, we have got various analytical models now, regression analysis and various other, models we are using in our analysis. Again, we have got research officers for that. In the tops, we have got 17 research officers who are doing research on these tops athletes only regarding their performance. They are also calculating as to what is the medal ability. What is the word for that? What is the
winning ability? Yes.
Winnability.
Yes, winnability.
Of a particular athlete. So all those things are being done and informed to the athlete.
Okay.
The athlete, the coach, and our team is completely together.
All right. So let me get Mr. Newnham, if you could pass the mic across to him. Mr. Newnham, just for easier for your reference, Dr. Satyapal, who's still sitting here and has been a coach, he was saying during his speech that there is a target that for India in Paralympics to be in the top 3 in the world. Now, it's very good to have a target, and people like you understand that the implementation of the target is the hard part. So now, from your experience, when we say, all right, this is the aspiration, now you can't just show up there and say, okay, here are a bunch of athletes, let's pick the best 5 and give them the most intensive training. It has to be a ground-up approach. How do you then go about designing a scheme? For example, you're inheriting something already existing in Singapore. How are you then designing something better for para-athletes?
So I think having a target of a finish, a place finish, is difficult because it depends on other countries. But you can certainly have targets for the individual athletes, exactly as we've just heard. So the approach for me would be to have an athlete management system. This is a centralized database where you put in the goal for the athlete and a measurable goal. Work out what the difference is between the performance that you want and the actual athlete performance. Let's say it's shaving 1.26 seconds off a 50-meter S2 backstroke, okay, a disability swimmer. Everyone's target then will be geared from the sports science side and from the coaching side to work on how you're going to shave 1.26 seconds off that time that they currently do to get your target. So everyone comes together around a table, literally, and maybe 12, 13 people, and then each person inputs. So the sports scientist would input on strength and conditioning, nutrition, sports psychology. The coach would be essential to that. You then have a plan. 3 big themes to try and get the target. Everyone's efforts goes towards those 3 themes, including sports psychology, to then measure again in, say, 2 months to see how close you are to the target.
Okay.
If everyone does that, everyone's going to get the best and move forward.
What about creating the system that is spotting the talent, which generally comes from where the school becomes so important, because your school coach is the first person who's spotting the talent, convincing the parents that this person should play this sport, then convincing them that sporting might be a professional occupation very, very shortly. So when we talk about that infrastructure, how does that emanate? We understand probably in cricket in our country, but how does that emanate in track and field and everywhere else?
Yep. So the national sports associations would be in tune with what the scenarios are around the school. So this school here, as I said earlier, is a benchmark, is a gold standard. This is how you do it. And if this can be scaled up, I think, this is how it would work.
So what are the other gold standards that you've seen abroad? I mean, from England, from Malaysia, from Singapore, what do you see that is worth bringing? That's the learning curve that we can have that cross-pollinates.
Yep. So one of the things is more information for physiology on para-athletes, because many of the models are based on able-bodied. So physiology specifically for disabled athletes. And then technical coaching, I think to build equip coaches with the knowledge specific for parasports, rather than able-bodied coaching models. Use a coach of able-bodied athletes and expand into para-specific coaching. So physiology, coaching, strength and conditioning, adaptations. I think with the education system, this is where all the athletes are going to come from.
Okay, and let me get Himika ji back into this, because it's always a conversation on how we can come out and support. Now, you heard Kavita ji talking about that, I got involved in this because I had a nephew with cerebral palsy, and somebody approached me. So, Himika ji, help us address this. That for people watching this, people sitting in the audience, I'm assuming the first thing you do is show up in the stadium and become a spectator, become a fan, watch these people performance across the sports, across abilities, on television. That is what all of us can do, certainly.
Absolutely. In fact, it's a kind of somewhere in your conversation you said, it's been cricket. I mean, we are a cricket crazy nation, and cricket is something that, captures the imagination when it comes to sport. But you'll see that, ever since at least the Tokyo 2020, I'm talking about the younger generation sitting here in the room with the Neeraj Chopra win, there's been a perceptible change in how people are consuming sport right now. And if you open the newspapers, even on an IPL day, there is at least half a page of coverage on the ongoing chess championship. So that is the kind of change that has happened, and that has only happened, A, because our athletes are performing wonderfully well, B, because, as the power of social media goes, as the power of media goes today, one is able to very easily consume far more than what is available only, let's say, on television. But, sport is largely dependent, and Satyapal sir will agree, and our athletes in this room will agree, sports is very, very largely dependent on its heroes for it to gain its popularity. And unless there are heroes, people will not go to the stadium and start, watching them, because you go not only for the thrill of the sport, but you go to support a person or a team. And today, as we speak, because again, coming back to the same thing, just to quote numbers, the para-athletes are far ahead of even our able-bodied athletes, and very happily so, in all major competitions, be it the Olympics, be it the Asian Games. And it is this, finding of heroes that will actually get people onto
So
the stadiums.
where do we take it? People like me who are in, I would like to still consider it some sort of media, mainstream media, okay, we'll call it that. Then we keep talking about social media, the best that we understand it. Literally watching a new sport is a self-fulfilling prophecy. You'll suddenly be inspired, you'll suddenly start knowing the names, and you'll find out those heroes, and then it's a network effect, right? One person goes, 10 people go, 100 people go, and suddenly the stadiums are packed. You're seeing that happening in women's sports, right? It's changing now. So when there's a men's World Cup, there is a women's World Cup happening in cricket. When it comes to the Paralympics, it's really caught on. But bringing it down to the local level, what would you tell people out there in terms of awareness of what is available, who the heroes are going to be?
Sure. So like you said, women's sports, I mean, the kind of interest that was around the WPL was so encouraging. I mean, people were actually buying tickets and going and watching the WPL, and that was very interesting. I think in terms of parasport, just to say that, it's only now in the last few years that we've been able to move from cricket to other able-bodied sport.
Okay.
So to move totally to a point where, para sports is going to be like, where people are queuing up in numbers may take some time. And this is where I would say, and that we need to use, because para stories, like ma'am here said, are so inspiring, because not only are they athletes, they are, representations and embodiments of the human spirit. Each athlete,
I'll even make it baser than that. We've only got a few minutes left, and let's get a microphone, and anybody has any questions, please do raise your hands. I'll come to you.
So therefore, to tell those very powerful stories, using, the social media. So I actually wanted to say that a show of hands in this room as to how many people are on social media, and everybody
it's
is.
going to be 10%,
and everybody is. And there is such a wonderful program going on in this school.
Okay.
And, every child here has the opportunity to showcase that on their own social media platforms and inspire so many more.
Can we have some
That
questions,
is where we need to start.
from the audience? If anybody wants to raise your hands while you are doing that, let me get a mic to you. Colonel Moore, is the games are just good. If you see the basketball league that happens, wheelchair basketball league, it's amazing. It's really cool to watch. It's what you just amazed. So the thrill of the game still remains the same.
Absolutely. It was
Anybody has questions, please raise your hands while Colonel Moore is speaking so I can point you out. Go ahead, Colonel.
Yeah, it was our privilege to host the wheelchair basketball players along the IPSC opening ceremony, which was the biggest IPSC in 80 years. So thanks again to Dr. Datta for that. So we ensure that our aim is that equality, equal opportunity, and equal appreciation to all in this environment. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and I'll emphasize the point. Just chakke dekho, just come and watch a game. It's an eye opener for you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.